What's going on, my broskiis? My name is Toadski, back again, here to bring you guys yet another One Piece Treasure Cruise video. So we're going to be doing a very similar video to what we did a couple of days ago, where we kind of discussed in terms of the treasure map characters that were coming out, the treasure map Sugo-Fest exclusives. There were so many of them, and I think it would have been a good idea to make a top 10, what I think the top 10 best Kizuna legends are. So we're going to do that for Kizunas and see what I think. Now, the thing is there are less Kizuna Sugo-Fest exclusives compared to treasure map legends, and what I will say is that just generally speaking, the quality of treasure map legends is far higher, in my opinion, compared to what you see with the Kizuna Clash legends. The Kizuna Clash legends definitely are nowhere near as valuable, in my opinion. You don't need them as much as the TM legends. And it's kind of how it is. Like, the thing is TM characters, the TM legends, you can actually use them in other TMs, and they are actually quite valuable in that game mode. But in Kizuna, very rarely are other Kizuna legends valuable in other Kizuna Clash modes. And considering we don't really get that much other generic content, it's hard to really put a good value on a lot of these Kizuna legends. So it's not going to be as important to know these top 10s compared to the treasure map ones, in my opinion. But without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into it. So we're going to start off with my number 10 position, and that character is going to be the Kizuna legend Otama. And of course, we're going to go over it in game and actually show you guys exactly what this is all about. Otama actually has a lot of good synergies with some good characters in the game. The fact that she is Dex, Powerhouse, and Free Spirit, it's a pretty good class and type combination. Her captain ability is mediocre. You're not really using her as a captain for her captain effect. It's more of the fact that her super type is actually very good. The condition to activate her super type is very easy. You know, you've got a lot of the Straw Hat focused characters, but Big Mom is the other big one here, because being able to use Big Mom with this super type effect is very powerful, being able to heal your crew, and then it also does defense down to the opponent through immunity and gives you a defense down conditional boost. And of course, it stacks very well with the Super Sugo-Fest exclusive Big Mom, which requires a powerhouse captain, which Otama is. And then, you know, Big Mom provides you with double stacking conditional boost and then procs her own ignited conditional boost. So that's like the really good synergy there. She does have Super Tandem as well. The Super Tandem is not great, but it does allow you to increase your attack buffs by 0.5, which I guess is kind of cool. Her special ability is also kind of interesting. It does provide some healing mechanics. It does remove Blind and Despair, which is neat. It does allow you to change some slots around, buff other buffs. Like, she's okay, but the main reason why I think that she would be on this list is because you're going to be using her in tandem with the Super Sugo Big Mom. When you're not using her with Big Mom, yeah, she does still provide a defense down conditional boost through immunity. Like, that could actually be pretty valuable. And technically, because she is Free Spirit, you could still stack it with the other double stacking conditional boost in Nico Robin, Super Sugo-Fest exclusive. So she works with both of those, which is cool. But not really much to say about Otama. She's not really that good in Rumble either. She's just okay, right? She's not game-breaking in any sense, but I think that because of the synergies that she has with some of the key Super Sugo units in the game to access high-damage content, I think that's probably where she lies, but unfortunately, not really going to see much play with Otama. So we're going to go ahead and move on back to the tier list now. My number 9 position is going to be a relatively recent Kizuna Clash legend, which is the Memories of Straw Hat's Brook. I'm actually a big fan of this unit. This unit's really, really nice. Not only is this character just good in normal content because of the niche abilities that he has, but in Rumble, he's actually a pretty solid pick as well. Captain ability, nothing really too crazy to talk about here. It's very bare bones basic, but he does boost Slasher and Free Spirit, which is big because they're two of the best classes in the game right now. And then if you're below 30% HP, he automatically launches his special, which is pretty cool. The super class effect, it does give him the minus 10 cooldown like we know with all of the Memories characters that they typically have. It reduces bind duration by 6 turns. That's also a really neat effect that he has. And then a 1.4 chain addition for 2 turns. Nothing to scoff at. And then, of course, the special ability is the big thing and why you would be using him, because he is the only character in the game at the moment that has the ability to remove the silence debuff. Now, this is not special bind. This is the debuff where the debuff is inflicted to your characters and you can't swipe up, you can't swipe down, you can't, use your switch effects, you can't use versus effect, you can't use EX supers, you can't do anything with the character. Brook is a character that can remove that debuff, so that's really neat that he has access to that. He also allows you to protect from defeat, so if an enemy does a really big death hit, he can block that. He also gives you an orb boosting effect. And then he also has the ability to like buff the chain addition stuff. So he's a really neat character because he's just unique with what he does. And then he does have a very good final tap. The final tap, you know, you need to have 4 of the following characters on the crew. That's pretty difficult to activate, but of course in high damage content, you might actually have a pretty good array of Straw Hat units on your team. The fact though, to do the same type of final tap that Luffy crew has, you know, the Straw Hat crew, where it's based on your other free spirit characters and then he adds that as his normal attack damage. This is pretty big. This also gets around resilience on the enemy. Even if you're not doing that much additional damage, just any damage from this will allow you to go through resilience, which is really sick. So I think that the final tap definitely carries him pretty hard. That's the problem with Kizuna Clash Legends though, is that they're very difficult to pull dupes of because not too many people are going to be pulling that often on a Kizuna Clash Sugo-Fest. So pulling dupes for these units is relatively difficult compared to like a normal base legend or a Super Sugo, where people will often do additional pulls to pull additional copies because it's actually well worth it. But Brook, honestly, I think he's a very powerful unit, and I mean in Rumble he has the ability to revive any free spirit character once they die one time, so that's obviously really nice. And then a 27 CT for what he does with really good damage, increasing your free spirit class special CT. He's just a really good unit overall, so I feel comfortable with putting him at 9. I feel like some people would probably even rank him higher than what I personally have. I'm a big fan of this unit in Kizuna Clash and just in a lot of content in general. He's a good unit. So I'm going to move on to number 8. This is a character that I've used in a lot of showcases, mainly because he provides a really interesting role, and that is Perez Sparrow. This character is really solid, and the main reason why people would often use Perez Sparrow is because of his very good captain ability. So Perez Sparrow is driven and striker focused in his captain effect. He gives the buffs to those units. He doesn't do a lot in his captain ability, but the key thing is that he resists special reverse by 10 turns. Now if you're running a striker team or you're running a driven team, more often with the driven side of things, there really isn't another captain that can resist special reverse. However, we did just get the release of Versus Kaido, which does have the ability in his captain effect to resist 10 turns of special reverse and 10 turns of paralysis, which is basically like Legend Uta, but for driven and powerhouse characters. We're mainly focused on driven with him. So this character's value is definitely gone down a little bit since that Kaido's release, because if you need a captain for driven that focuses on special reverse, you're probably better off using Kaido instead of this guy. But there are still other valuable effects to Perez Sparrow. Unfortunately, with his superclass, he does require a full striker team, so that is a real big drawback to him. The effect in the superclass is actually very good, but it's just unfortunate that it doesn't really work out for focusing on driven teams. The special ability is very powerful, being able to put all of your slots into slot change impossible, and it doesn't break until you hit a great. So as long as you consistently hit perfects or goods, you're going to keep those slots forever. So being able to just manipulate your slots around, use this preemptively, keep the slots forever. Whenever the enemy changes your slots literally into anything, this gets around it. So that's a really valuable mechanic that this guy has that not a lot of characters will get access to. So that's a big, talking point and a really big point of difference that Perez Sparrow has compared to other legends. Unfortunately, actually, I will say that the support that he has does see some play. Basically, whenever you're inflicted with chain attack down, he gives you a 2.75 chain lock. That's actually pretty cool. If the chain attack down is like a 2.5 times, this allows you to get around that for that one turn. It does only attach to some of the other Big Mom pirates, but it's still pretty good overall. He doesn't see really any play in Rumble, so nothing really to talk about there. He does have the ability to give cooldown reduction at the start of the fight for himself, so even if he's on a team where he doesn't naturally get cooldown, he's going to be ready to go pretty quickly. So I think Perez Sparrow is a pretty valuable unit in a lot of cases, because special reverse resistance in a captain is just phenomenal, right? So big shout out to Perez Sparrow in the number 8 position. Moving on to number 7, very similar role, but I feel like this character just sees more play, is Legend X Drake. So I've used him pretty much for the same reasons as Perez Sparrow, because, he does have that captain ability that also resists 10 turns of special reverse, but this guy, instead of focusing on striker driven, he focuses on striker powerhouse. So, I mean, honestly, you could probably put these characters in the same position. They pretty much fulfill a very, very similar role to each other. I just have used X-Drake more in the past compared to what I've used with Perez Sparrow. The super type of him is also pretty cool, does a bit of damage, does some cooldown reduction, makes certain slots beneficial, which is okay. The special ability, being able to provide a chain boundary effect, is obviously really nice as well. But like overall, like they do provide very, very similar roles. Support effect, I haven't really used his support that much, but it does attach to any striker, and if you use a damage dealing special, you get a striker attack boost, could be pretty useful, and unfortunately doesn't really see any play in Rumble. People tried to find ways to use him in Rumble, but honestly, I'm not really the biggest fan of him. He does apply further damage or further debuffs towards Dex enemies, but if you're running a strength team, there's just better units to use compared to this guy. So X-Drake is going to be in my number 7 position, but honestly, you could probably put him and Perez Sparrow together. The next one in number 6 is going to be the Memories of Straw Hat's Chopper. Now, there's only one main reason why I have Chopper in the number 6 position, and it's not my favorite Straw Hat. It's mainly because of the captain ability to remove Pain debuff by 10 turns. Pain debuff, very difficult to get rid of, and a very, very troublesome debuff. So being able to remove it in the captain effect naturally is really nice. He does boost Int, Cerebral, and Fighter, so you've got a pretty good array of units that you could be using with him. And he does also provide 3000 healing at the end of the turn as well. So not only removing that debuff that removes your HP, but also providing very good healing mechanics on top of that. The superclass effect, nothing that great, honestly. It does give a base attack boost and a little bit of healing. He does generate some tandem slots, I suppose, but it's not the best. You're mainly just using him because of the effect to remove Pain. And because Pain is such a prevalent debuff, you can use him to get around that. The effect in the special, though, is really good. Removing 7 turns of defense up can also be nice. Removing poison sometimes can be quite useful. Reducing cooldown. It gives a tap timing chain growth rate, which is a really nice buff. It actually provides a really substantial amount of damage, especially this one, which can give you 0.7 per perfect. Usually when you naturally hit a perfect, the chain increases by 0.3. This will make it increase by 0.7. Like, that's a pretty big increase to your overall damage, especially when you account for all of the characters that will be attacking on your crew. It does allow for additional healing and stuff like that, but obviously the point of difference here is the fact that he does have the pain removal, which is very uncommon. He does have the potential ability of hunger, which sometimes is required, so it is nice that he has that. Support effect is very good, but unfortunately it only attaches to Dr. Kureha and Dr. Hero Look, so very niche. But the effect says whenever you use that character special, removes defense up by 6 turns. Like, that's a ridiculous support. Of course, it does only attach to very specific units. The final tap, I honestly don't even remember what his final tap does. I completely forgot he even had a final tap. It boosts the multiplier, the chain multiplier by 1.8, so it's okay. There's definitely way better final taps out there. It does provide healing as well, but it's kind of whatever. Support effect, we already talked about, and then in Rumble, this character has, people have tried to use him because Int and Cerebral is quite popular in Rumble, but honestly, the way that it kind of is that if you're running Int and Cerebral, there's way better units you can be using on your team over this Chopper, but it's the uniqueness because there's literally like no one else that removes pain. It's a very, very uncommon debuff removal effect, so shout out to Chopper for being a number 6. Number 5, now we're going to the top 5. So with the top 5, a lot of these units are actually the older Kizuna Clash Legends, because the older ones, they've maintained a lot of value over time. And in 5th position, we're going to have the very first Kizuna Legend that ever debuted, which is Sanji and Pudding. So, Sanji and Pudding have a lot of positive values to them. One of the biggest things about them is that it's a Sanji and a Pudding character, so you get access to some very good supports that attach to them. Another thing, they have Hunger Potential ability. Very valuable that they have that. The Captain ability doesn't really matter. The switch effect of this unit also really doesn't matter all that much. The big key thing here is the special ability. So the special ability being able to remove damage reduction and damage threshold completely off of the enemy side of the field. Also granting color affinity boost is really good. Also granting a little bit of HP recovery is really nice. But the other cool thing, like there's some really cool synergies that you can do, like use their special ability, removing Threshold and Rainbow Shield completely. And because it's a Sanji character, you can have the support of Onami attached to this unit, which means you can also set enemies' defense to 0 for 2 turns from the support. So this character, depending on the situation, can literally get rid of all of the enemy defensive effects by themselves. So that's cool, right? And then this character being mainly focused in Cerebral is good, because Cerebral is one of the better classes in the game. So the only real issue that could be a problem with this unit, obviously, is that it is a Sanji character, and there are a lot of good Sanjis in the game. So there may be some overlap in that regard. But again, like this character will always see some kind of play, because being able to remove Threshold and Rainbow Shield completely, despite how many turns the opponent has, is going to be a point of difference, because not too many characters can actually do that. Especially if you don't have a lot of characters on your account and you're looking for really good ways to get around defensive effects, this is a nice character that can do that. So shout out to Sanji and Pudding. And, you know, when this character first came out, people were testing this character in Rumble. Their abilities are focused on boosting your whole crew or buffing your whole team no matter what. So a very interesting character, but probably not a character you would often use in Rumble. So we're going to move on to number 4 position. Now, I'm a big advocate for this unit, the Fire Tank Pirates. The Fire Tank Pirates are really cool. I remember when they first came out and I just couldn't get them. I did like a ton of pulls when they came out and I just could not get them because not only were they focused on boosting driven characters, but they also boost shooter characters. So the captain ability was nice, providing healing and very defensively focused, and also allows your crew to not be blown away, so that's kind of nice that they get access to that. The switch effect provides some really good bulk and some additional healing, but it's mainly their special ability as to why they are good. So they remove Special Bind by 5 turns, which is already good. They remove Threshold and Rainbow Shield also by 5 turns. They do really good orb changing effects, which is fantastic. They remove block and recovery slots. They also change type slots as well, all into matching for shooter and driven, and then also put them in slot change impossible. Now, this is not as good as Perez Sparrow's slot change impossible because once you hit a perfect, it does remove the slot change, but being able to just have that so that you can carry matching slots over multiple stages to get around enemy slot change is a very valuable thing that they have. And then also, on top of all of the effects, they also grant 2 turns of a 2.5 times attack boost to shooter and driven. So they grant Special Bind, 2 defensive effect removal, really good slot change impossible, attack boost, so much that they do here. And even till today, this is still a character that does see play on shooter and driven teams for that reason. They just provide so much with their abilities. People would often use them in Rumble when they first came out because he was such a defensive beast. But of course, as time has progressed, this character is nowhere near as good in Rumble anymore, but still a good character worth focusing in on. So now we move on to the top 3. Now, in my 3rd position, I'm putting the most recent Kizuna Clash legend. I think Shiryu is the number 3 best Kizuna Clash character in the game. Now, I don't have it in game to really show you right here, but Shiryu's fantastic. We've already talked about him extensively. He's got a really good captain action. He's got the special ability to grant potentially increased damage taken, but also the key thing of set target status, and we know how good set target status is just providing so much additional damage. But the great thing is that he has fantastic synergy with not only the Blackbeard stuff, with the most recent versus Blackbeard and all of the characters focused around that, but he has great synergy, as we know, with some of the other more recently released characters like versus Shanks and the whole Slasher squad. You could run him with Zoro and Sanji to transform everyone into a Slasher so that his set target status actually works for the whole team. So I really love what Shiryu's done, and I mean, we kind of brushed over it, but that captain action that he has, the vanish ability to basically block any debuff that would be targeted on him as a captain, is so valuable because not only does it last for 3 turns, but it actually lasts for 5 turns, so it's even better than Sober Mask's and Queen's captain action as before, so you can have it over multiple different turns. So I really love what they've done with Shiryu, and I think he's going to be a valuable character moving forward. I think he's a phenomenal unit. The thing is it's hard to really gauge right now how much play he will see. He's definitely going to be used in high damage content because set target status just stacks on top of everything else that you can apply. But is he going to be used in more normal generic content? I think he will, because of that captain action being incredibly valuable. And there's no condition attached to captain actions. As long as you have him on the crew as your captain, you can use it whenever you want. So it's not like a super type or an EX super where you need to have certain units on your crew. You can use it whenever you want. So I think that's another really big thing that really adds to how good he is. So we'll move on now to top 2. Now, the top 2 position, I think most people would understand what the top 2 positions are for the Kizuna Clash Legends. For my number 2 position, I'm putting Ace and Sabo. Ace and Sabo, they're just so good. A lot of people would probably have them at number 1, but I've got another character that I'm going to be putting at number 1. So I don't think I need to explain too much about what Ace and Sabo do to make them good. Of course, they are focused on shooter and, well, they're Rainbow Captain, but there are effects that are focused on shooter and free spirit in their special ability. They were one of the first characters with Super Switch, which is good. They have the color affinity and adjacent slots as matching, so very similar Super Switch to like what Shank's crew had, but instead of focusing on an attack boost, they would do color affinity instead. And then with their Super Switch, being able to give a full board of orbs and a bigger color affinity boost, sometimes you'd have him on the crew just to have that that switch effect to get a full border matching slot. The color affinity is a bonus, and it does work for all characters, which is good. But the other big thing about this unit is that special, right? Being able to remove bind, despair, special bind all by 5 turns, give you an orb boost, and if you have Luffy on the crew or as a support on this unit, then you get like the orb boost lasts for 3 turns instead of 1 turn. They change slots and the crew's block slots into matching, so you can use their switch effect and then their special to basically get rid of every type of slot into matching. And then I guess one thing that's kind of been disregarded is that in their captain effect, they've got different debuff removals. So Ace's captain effect removes despair by 10 turns, Sabo's removes special bind by 10 turns, and of course if you're in the combined form, you remove both of them by 10 turns. So they've got great captain ability usage, fantastic switch ability, great normal special. When this character first came out, people would often use them in Rumble because they had an okay kind of ability set. People back in the day would really try to make Free Spirit teams work. Free Spirit didn't really become that great until more recently, but this was one of the characters that people would try to make Free Spirit good with because their abilities were generic. It boosted the whole team. They had an okay special ability. Of course, in today's day and age, it's not really that great, but it's more of the fact that it's an Ace, it's a Sabo, they've got great abilities in almost every facet, and then also they get access to fantastic supports because Ace and Sabo will continuously get supports that will attach to them that make them even better. Of course, a lot of Luffy's can attach to them too, so it does make a really big difference. So I do think Ace and Sabo is probably the second best, but I think more people would agree that it's maybe number 1. But we'll talk about my number 1 position right now, because in number 1 I have Toki. And I think that if you asked me this question maybe 6 months, maybe a year ago, I probably would have Toki not at number 1. But in more recent Kizuna clashes, Toki actually has seen like a little bit of a resurgence because she has just been seeing a bunch of play because of that amazing special ability. The only reason Toki sees play is because of the special. The captain ability, no one cares about. The super type, no one cares about. It's all about this special ability. And the reason is this special ability is incredibly unique because we talked about the Shiryu effect before with that Vanish Captain action. This special basically allows you to select 2 characters on your crew and they get that Vanish Captain action effect for 2 turns or for 3 turns, whatever it is, it's 2 turns. So what you can do is before moving into a boss stage, use their special ability, select 2 characters that you want. They're basically unaffected by every single debuff in the game, and because it lasts for 2 turns, when you end that turn, move into the next turn, and then the enemy's preemptive attack, that all will allow you to remove or basically bypass all of the effects that would land on those 2 characters. Once that expires, those 2 characters that you selected receive a 3.5 times attack and or boost for 1 turn. So a lot of the times, you don't even need to worry about boosting the rest of the team because those 2 characters that you selected with this special ability are going to be your big damage dealers. Remember, 3.5 times attack and all boost is no joke. That is a massive amount of damage that you're granting with this special ability. And when you think about all of the other effects that we get access to these days, you have color affinity, conditional boost, super tandems, final tap, rush, set target status, increased damage taken. All of these things, you can just run the rest of your crew focusing on that because you don't need attack and orb boost when you got Toki on the crew. And we've seen in recent super bosses that this ability, just allowing 2 characters, especially characters that are the final characters to attack in the chain, that have a rush or a final tap, they do monstrous amounts of damage when you have this character on them. And it's not only just that, it's the fact that you're also bypassing any debuff that attaches to them. So hypothetically, you could just target your 2 captains. If your captain reflected with a bunch of despair, bind, special bind, blow away even, it avoids blow away. Like, there's so many cool things you can do with Toki, and I think that's part of the reason why I would have her at number 1, because there's just no other character in the game that does what she does, and you can use it in just about every piece of content in the game. She's so valuable. Also having fear reduction so that her crewmate ability stay active. Her crewmate ability being able to resist her own special bind by 5 and special reverse by 2. That's also really nice to make her always become active, make her always become useful. So Toki's just phenomenal, and she also has a support effect that can buff her supported character, giving them an attack and an orb boost by 1.5. It sees some niche usage, but not really that much. And the thing is, she does see play in Rumble as well, being able to provide more of a supporter style role for your strength characters, giving them special reverse, giving them healing mechanics. So that's why I would think that Toki at the moment would be my personal number 1 best Kizuna Clash legend in the game. So in terms of how I'd rank all of these, this is probably how I would do it. So I think Toki is the clear standout number 1. I would put Sabo, Ace, and Shiryu together in like a tier like that. They would probably be the next best units. And then the tier below that, I would put the next group of units: Fire Tank, Sanji Pudding, Chopper, Drake, and Perez Sparrow. And then just below that, I'd put Brook and Otama. As for the rest of the units, these characters are just a little too niche or aren't powerful enough, in my opinion, to be up in this discussion. Whereas I feel like the characters that we've put in the top 10, these are units that can be used in a lot of scenarios. They synergize well with some of the best units in the game and would see often play because of their abilities. That's just the way that I personally rank it, but I think Toki is my personal number one for the Kizuna Clash Legends. But let me know what you think. Let me know what you think about these Kizuna Clash units. What would be your top 10? Hopefully you enjoyed this video though. If you did, make sure to go ahead and leave a like, and if you want to stay up to date with all the content I post, including more One Piece Treasure Cruise content, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. And that, guys, I'll see you guys within the next video.